I suggest you back the fuck up.
No, no.
This is Baltimore City Police Officer Jorge Bernardes Ruiz. In a newly released video shot in 2016, Ruiz is seen with his knee on the back of an unknown man with a gun pointed at the man's head. His message was a clear one. Concerned onlookers, adhere to my dictates or else. Here, we can hear Ruiz saying to Baltimore residents,
I suggest you back the fuck up. No, no.
It is documented that Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardes Ruiz is a repeat violent offender, even without access to all complaints against Ruiz, undisclosed by BPD Internal Affairs records. 6 cases involving Ruiz are known. This video will briefly highlight 6 total cases beginning in July of 2013. Case 1, Abdul Salam, July 1st, 2013. Here Salam is seen victoriously smiling in celebration after the jury found Ruiz and 2 other cops liable for brutality against him. However, because the trial was civil, not criminal, Ruiz was not fired and he did not go to jail.
Police profiled me. They followed me in the back of my house, harassing me. Police proceeded to violently and hostilely approach my van with me and my son in it. As I announced, this was my home, guns drawn. Once they reached my vehicle, they violently pulled me out, ramshacked my vehicle with my 3-year-old son strapped in his car seat, threw me against the gate, slammed me repeatedly, picked me up by my feet, and while I'm upside down, they proceeded to drop me on my head, hog tie me, and immediately when I fell on my head, Ruiz, in a wrestling type of action, and kind of hit his knee against my neck. I was arrested. I had no idea what I was being arrested for. My son is scarred to this day. He remembers the incident as it happened yesterday. When he talks about it, he always refers to daddy being on the floor with police yesterday.
Case 2, Darrell Harris, profiled, as seen in this video, July 17th, 2013.
Yeah, Sid, what's wrong with it? There's no such thing as improper way. I know the law. I know the law. I know the law. What's the problem? You giving me a ticket? You need my license registration? To profile, I use the seatbelt as a reason. Profile.
To be fair, take out your keys.
Yeah, you can record for what? Nah. I don't feel safe right now. Do you want me to step out the car? Do you want me to step out the car? I'll step out the car. Call the police, man. What are you calling the supervisor? I brought you shit. This is getting uploaded to the internet right now. Yeah?
And we are 2 law-abiding citizens that we're getting targeted, and I don't know why.
Just 24 hours later, Bernardes Ruiz played a leading role in the police killing of unarmed Tyrone West. Case number 3, the murder of Tyrone West, July 18th, 2013.
My brother Tyrone West was brutally murdered on July the 18th, 2013.
In both of these cases, when you look at the pleadings and the harsh language of these officers that have been quoted to me by reliable witnesses, the N-word.
And Killer Ruiz and Killer Chapman and the rest of those 11 and 15 killers, including David Lewis, took something from my family that they can never give us again. And that was my brother Tyrone West, one unarmed man who was brutally murdered, beat to death in broad daylight.
Mic check, mic check. This is West Wednesday, number 384. We are calling for justice for all victims of police violence and justice for Tyrone West. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. Thank you guys. Like my brother Ben said, this is week 384, day 2,688. So for all these weeks nonstop, we have been fighting for accountability, not just for my big brother Tyrone West, but for all the victims of police brutality and all the victims of murder, period. And as you can see, if you live here in Baltimore City, it's a lot going on in my city right here, and it makes me sad even though I know I advocate for police brutality. Unfortunately I didn't ask for this. Me and my family was forced into this lane, and I will always fight not only for my big brother Tyrone West, but for all the victims of police brutality. So if you saw that short video, I hope you stay tuned for part two, and that's going to come at the closure of this. But nevertheless, this is real footage of Ruiz, basically one of the first officers that showed up and started brutally murdering my brother Tyrone West. And the saddest part, it could have all been prevented had, the city would have took action. Literally, if you see, it was around her, it was 24 hours before. There was even Ed Blue Salon who did everything 2 weeks before. He filed reports with internal affairs and everything, and to no avail, nothing happened. And as you can see, after the brutal murder of Tyrone West, Ruiz in 2016, far as what we know, was damn near could have killed everybody in the crowd. Like he's a bomb ready to explode, and no one is safe as long as he's working. So I said all that to say that we're going to constantly, continuously fight for accountability. I would like to give a big birthday shout out to my sister Beverly, the mother of Zoe. It's her birthday today, and I hope she's having a good day. I know it's hard without her son Zoe, and she fights like hell for her son. So, speaking of fighters, I have three special guests on here tonight that fights really, really hard, and it's my brother Kenji. He fights and he advocates for all the foolishness that's happening in my city with all these murders. It seems as though we have a serial killer. Like me and my brother sometimes talk offline, online, we text, we talk to each other, and it's just sad. But the thing I love about my brothers that I have, when I have my sister, she's going to come back on and give us an update. And her daughter, unfortunately, was murdered, but she was not murdered by police officers. So we know that everything is just not about police officers. But I can tell you, it's called the highway of hell. At the end of the day, it's us that are getting murdered and no one's being held accountable. But the difference between police violence and police terror is that you can know who the officer is all day long, and you have to fight like hell to actually even get a charge for the police officers, and nothing gets done. They laugh in your face. And the saddest part, most people believe officers because, officers are supposed to be credible people, but at the end of the day, we know it's sad that your life shouldn't be a game of Russian roulette. That depending on the officer's discretion, if him or her is having a bad day or not, if they want to take your life. And that's so sad. That's utterly disgusting. And like I said, it's been 7 long years, going on 8. It's horrible. Like, at what point is Marilyn Mosey going to step up and do her damn job? And that's the saddest part. Nobody wants to do their job. I'm not asking nobody to break or bend no rules. I'm asking you to do your job. That's it. And the saddest part, like I was saying, with the homicides in my city, it's horrible. It felt like it's a serial killer that's out here. And the thing I love about my brother Kenji, even though Brian, he reads the list that we have, he reads it every week, but every day my brother Kenji lives and breathes this stuff. Like, literally, he even helped. Unfortunately, he helped do funerals for families. He's really dedicated, and it's just saying. I remember when my brother was murdered, Kenji actually he did his own special kind of protest for my brother. He stopped taking his meds for almost a whole month. Like, he was on the field. He was out there when Freddie Ray got killed. So he's not just with the community box. We know that at the end of the day, this is called the highway of hell. It doesn't matter what lane you come from, whether it's homelessness, whether it's police brutality, whether it's community violence. All this stuff is for our demise. As we know with this COVID-19, nobody's doing nothing. Governor Hogan is not giving a damn about what's going on. We are worse off than what we were when we look back at this almost damn near going on a year ago. The numbers are rising up. The hospital, all they keep saying, wear the damn mask. Obviously, wearing the damn mask is not enough. And I'm encouraging everybody to actually wear the mask. But at the end of the day, something really needs to be done. But we're in a capitalist system that don't give a damn. As long as you report the work, you can put them 8 hours, and that's all it's about. It's not about none of these people that are actually dying right now from COVID getting affected. We don't know if we're gonna even make it out this pandemic. Unfortunately, we don't know, but we know that it's real. And the saddest part, they keep changing. Oh well, they don't even know their self. And then they're trying to force this vaccine on us that, that to me, it probably would take a few years to actually get it right. They want to just put something together and expect for somebody to take it. It's just a whole lot going on. I know I'm all over the place, but I mean, it is what it is. But anyway, no further ado, I'm going to bring first on my brother Kenji. Followed behind him will be our brother Donnie, and I'll tell you all about this brother from Black Wall Street. He does everything. I remember he even gave me and my family an award for West Wednesday. Like, this brother was coming out on the scene covering like real news. Like, I'm talking about, because the media to me plays a big part on rather a person be looked upon or frowned upon. And the saddest part, they keep on saying, with my brother being brutally murdered, they keep on saying this foolishness about, oh, there was a struggle, Mr. Weston, when all this foolishness, he had drugs on him. We already know that there were no drugs, never tested, never found, never submitted. Out the own killer's mouth themselves, when asked, where did you see these drugs at? Why didn't you turn them in? Ruiz himself said, I heard about it on the news. Like, are you freaking kidding me? So you guys killed one unarmed man for what? No one can tell me that. But I said all this to say about the media. They can make innocent people look guilty and guilty people look innocent. And it's just really sad. And I remember, and I just saw a picture that came upon my time post yesterday that basically was when the mayor at the time, Blake, that's all I call her, Blake. That's just it, Blake. I'm not going to give her any respect because she didn't give any of my family members any respect. So to me, Blake. Okay, so when Blake was in office, she ducked my family out. It was horrible. The stuff she did to my family was terrible. Like, I wouldn't wish nobody's family to go through what me and my family went with these politicians, okay? But literally to be disrespected by a mayor of a city that didn't give a damn, even met with my family after we chased her down for months. And the crazy part, we were actually just chasing her down, trying to get answers, trying to be transparent to figure out what was going on, how are they going to proceed with this. And she literally stepped over top of my Aunt Diane, who I look at as a mom, who fell out at a town hall meeting. She stepped over her to cut my uncle off, to tell them not to answer my uncle's question, like literally. And I give a shout out to Baltimore Block, who have all type of live footage of the foolishness that me and my family endured. And the crazy part, she ducked us out, and then on December the 1st, she had to turn right around and come down to my cousin's store and cut the ribbon off the tree, like put the ribbon on or whatever associated with the holidays. And I stood right behind her head in broad daylight on her camera interview with Fox 45, and I yelled, justice for Tyrone West and all the victims of police brutality. But it's sad, like, we had to shut town hall meetings down. We did it all. But the reason why I said all this to say, my brother Donnie, I'll never forget, he was even at a town hall meeting where the mayor, she called this big meeting about police brutality. Finally, she claimed she wanted to talk about police brutality. But at this meeting, this sister wouldn't even talk about police brutality. She actually brought up a little girl that was murdered on Uncle, I think her name is Mackenzie, but she was murdered on Uncle Bill's block. On York Road, she was assassinated, a 3-year-old baby girl. But she actually brought this baby girl up into the conversation of police brutality, just to sweep that underneath of the rug, to explore the little girl's death and say, well, you know what, guys, until you guys hold yourself accountable, we can't hold these off. Like, what are you talking about? What does one thing have to do with the other? Then she went so far as to start talking about HIV and everything. And I remember my brother Donnie showed up with the camera crew the very next day to talk about that meeting, which was good footage and good, and just a big shout out. So I'm babbled on enough. I'm going to bring up my first guest. No further ado, mic check, Kenji. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Good evening, everybody. Just to let you know what I do. In 2015, Tawanda and myself was actually the first people at the Northwestern District as the Freddie Gray protest started. And I think me and Tawanda was the people that actually named it an uprising. We said it wasn't a riot. And it took off, but something else took off too. In July of 2015, we started to see an increase in homicide rates in Baltimore City. We jumped 152% in homicides when under Sheila Dixon from 2007 when she came into office. For a whole 8-year period when she had left, when her and Tony Barksdale had left, we had saw a steady decline in homicides under their administration up into 2014. And so we saw an increase. And so right now we have 1,966 homicides. 93% of those homicides are Black people in the city of Baltimore. That's what I advocate for every day. And about a year ago, well, 2 years ago, I realized that there was a lot of families not able to afford caskets and urns, and the funeral service was not a little bit, but anybody had to pay for a funeral. No, they're very expensive. And so I started working with Maryland Criminal Injuries and Roberta House to start assisting families with the cost of funerals by providing them with low-cost caskets and urns and flowers and obituaries and whatever else we could help families with. And sometimes I don't even sell them anything. Sometimes it's just about helping them get assistance. Thanks to Senator Antonio Hayes, and we go to bat for families to help people get buried because people don't see the back end of it. And people talk about trauma. There is nothing more traumatic for a mother or a father to have to bury their child and then cannot afford to bury their child that has been slain in the city. And the most horrible thing is that we've had two administrations. We've had every administration after Sheila Dixon to just really not give a damn. And that has been a serious problem. We had police commissioner after police commissioner. People talk about consistency. I'm not talking about consistency. I'm talking about competency. When we can get competency, we can get consistency. And a big issue I have with it, I say it all the time, if we were talking about a homicide rate that was 93% white, this would not be allowed. But the fact that we have Black men dying at the rate they're dying, and there is no sense of urgency in this city, I think it's horrible. I have protested police brutality. I protested all of it. All of it is horrible. Even and I think she brings up Marilyn Mosby, and anybody knows me know I worked in her office. In her response is horrible. She came in after Bernstein and she challenged him on a homicide rate. And that year that Bernstein left, that year was 2014, 211 homicides. Her first year, 348. But that first year, I went to Marilyn Mosby at the request of Tawanda them about having Tyrone's body exhumed. And she had promised that they would have the body exhumed and they would reopen the investigation. And what did she tell me in her office? She said, well, you have to talk to the Baltimore County state's attorney, which was a lie, and they have to be responsible because he's buried in Baltimore County. And so we see elected officials who say they're Black, who pretend to care, but when it's time for them to show up, they don't show up. I think Baltimore City is in a really state of emergency right now. And she mentioned serial killers. I mentioned it the other day. We had two women, Sunday, and within less than 24 hours, one in Southwest and one in Northwest, and both bodies were found dismembered. And they're saying that these homicides are not homicides, they're suspicious deaths. We had a young man who was found dead in the middle of a shooting on Redwood Street, a short walk from the state's attorney's office. They called his death a suspicious death. They had a young man who was shot in a homicide with another man, and they have not even counted his homicide. So those are the things that I advocate for, and to be quite honest, they piss me off. And so that's all.
Excuse me, Kenji. Kenji, did you want your camera to be on?
It doesn't matter. I can cut it on now, but I'm on now.
Whatever you like. I just want to be sure you knew that it wasn't on.
I'm gonna just pass it on now. That's my opening statement.
Well, Kenji, I just want to tell you that I have a lot of love and respect for you because unlike a lot of people in this city, like you are really dedicated from your heart. Like you love people like you love yourself.
Yeah,
And that's how I love people like I love
yeah,
myself. I wouldn't do nothing that I won't have done to me or my family
that's
members.
it.
And that's what I wanted to just give you a big shout out just for like
Likewise.
stepping
Same to
up,
you.
even for Keith Davis Jr., like just for my brother, like for everybody, like you are the real deal. And I just want to give you your flowers and roses while you're here
Thank you.
because we see a lot of people that God forbid something tragic happened to them. Now everybody on the bandwagon. Oh, he did this. This was my button. Now they want to pull out pictures of them from 20 years ago. This foolishness.
See, we
So
never
we
stopped,
keep it
did we? We
real
didn't
with you.
stop.
So, yeah.
We talk about Freddie Gray. We have not stopped. What happened to all of those people during the Freddie Gray program? Everybody went away. We started out there at Northwest, and now everybody's gone home. We still here. Well, Dottie's still let down in Sandtown, but everybody went home. It wasn't time to go home.
They sure did.
Yeah.
They sure did.
The cameras left and they left.
Right. Yeah, they sure did.
Yeah.
Tawanda, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so do anybody have any questions for my brother?
I guess I have one.
Go ahead.
Kenji, you know, Frantz Fanon, in his book Wretched of the Earth, argued that if you take a subset of the population and you give them the worst treatment, the most police brutality, the worst housing, the worst schools, the most unemployment, that it leads to a certain amount of bitterness and anger. And until people have consciousness about the real source of the problem, they tend to lash out at the closest, most vulnerable target. So in other words, he argues that the basis of community violence is really racism that leads to the mentality that ends up in those kind of deaths. And police brutality, of course, as we know, also is on the basis of racism. So according to Frantz Fanon's view, police brutality and community violence are the two sides of the same coin, really, both rooted in racism. So I'm just curious about if you think that's correct to view it that way, or if you have a different view.
Somewhat. I mean, I've long said that black on black violence is a product of white racism in America, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it, and Donnie's a little bit older than me. I'm 51, and so I remember my grandmother. She came from the cotton fields of Mississippi. My mother remembers segregation, and I was born in '69. I was born in East St. Louis, Illinois, and we were poor as hell. I lived in a house with no water, lights, or gas. I graduated high school at 20. And my story is not unlike anybody else. I went to college and earned a graduate degree and did all of that stuff. And so I'm saying is that black folk have always suffered at the hand of our white oppressors from slavery throughout. There was something that happened that people don't like talking about, because I think I would probably be a segregationist. I'm not pro integration. I think the worst thing that happened to black people was when we had integration, we lost everything that we had of value. And there was this notion that what white people had was right because we had it, and when we got it, we lost a lot. And I think Donnie talks about, he talks about Black Wall Street all the time. Those communities, Black Wall Street in Oklahoma wasn't the only one. They had the same thing in Chicago, the same thing in Baltimore. I had a professor, Dr. Buford Thompson, he's dead now, from Mississippi. He wrote a book that talked about black high schools, how we had our own black prom queens and prom kings and football teams. My grandmother, who was born in 1915, talked about how she played basketball at her little country church school. The point is, when we had integration, I love equality, but something about integration destroyed our value and our pride in who we were as a people So when you talk about it, yeah, I think that self-hatred, that has been impressed upon us, well, I just said, with white liberalism. We got white liberals who say we're not racist. But Malcolm talks about them more so than he talked about Southern races, who tells, oh, you know what? You don't know any better. You can't control yourself. This causes you to act that way. That causes you to act that way. No, we are human beings. We have to be accountable for our own actions. I do believe, though, what we have in our community is a byproduct of white racism, but it's self-hatred, a lack of pride in who we are. The depiction of black men in the 1970s in our black exploitation films that showed us as pimps. I remember my uncle just buried him. I got a picture right here of him now. He wanted to be a pimp and he wanted a white woman. That's how he defined himself, with a Cadillac, and everybody was tough in the 70s. And that whole image of this hyper-masculine black male wasn't a positive image, but it became an image of a black male who was always horny, who was always having these babies, who was always drunk, who was always in a fight. That was not none of us. Wasn't who we are. And that was the image that Hollywood sold us. And that image has been sold to us for the last 3-4 decades. That's my opinion. I could be wrong.
Thank you.
That was deep. Y'all got church for free.
I didn't mean to preach.
Church for free. But is my sister on? Because she just sent me a message. She said she was trying to connect, but she couldn't. But I thought I seen that she was on.
She's here. She's here.
Yes, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Hi. How you doing? How's everybody tonight?
Awesome. Sis, can you tell everybody your name, where you from, and everything? Because this is my sister been on here before, and I'm glad to bring her back because she have a wonderful update. So, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Yes. Hi guys. Hi everybody. My name is Nortasha Stingley. I'm a mom here in Chicago, Illinois. I'm the mother of 3 beautiful children, 2 young men, and a beautiful daughter. Unfortunately, June 25th, 2013, my one firstborn daughter, who made me a mom, was killed in gun violence here in Chicago. June 25th, 2013. Marissa Simone Boyd Stingley, she was a 19-year-old college student studying to become a pediatrician. Beautiful spirit, beautiful young lady, killed, riding along in a car with 4 other people, 1 young lady and 3 young men. Her and the young lady was picked up in front of my house to go just, having a time or whatever. Before these 3 young men came and got my daughter and the young lady, they had words with a guy. And this guy, the 3 young men, were calling him a cross-eyed bitch. They came around the corner, picked up my daughter and everything. This shooter or whatever saw them a block or so from my house on 73rd and King Drive here in Chicago. At the stoplight, the light turned red. The kids was at the car. The man pulled up and looked in the car, and they was like saying cross-eyed B again to him.
It's
like,
7
you know
o'clock.
somebody in this car, you cross-eyed B? And he was like, oh yeah, and just started shooting up the car. Everybody in the car was shot. My daughter was the only one, unfortunately, that was killed. Those kids started doing the no snitching thing, not want to tell, not want to say what happened. As clear as I'm looking at y'all, they looked at this man and they knew what they did with this man, what they said or who this man was. So for fast forward, I've been out here fighting, out in the streets, just in the trenches, having guns pulled on me, just everything out here in Chicago in the bad areas, going and trying to ask questions and get this man locked up that killed my daughter and shot those other victims that was in the car. Since then, recently, the man was found. He was taken into custody. He's in custody, thank God.
Wow.
After a 7-year fight, he's finally been locked up and he's in jail. He just had court on the the other day or whatever. So, you know, and then it's still a battle. I still have to go through, you know, the court process. But who's to say he's going to be convicted? Who's to say, you know, with the judicial system now, the court system now, they may let this person go. So I'm just prepared for it. But one thing for certain, and two for sure, I know for certain God is good. And that this is the person that killed my daughter, even if he does not spend one day convicted as a killer. In my heart, I know what God has done. God has done this. This is nobody but God, because they told me they would never find who did this. And it wasn't nobody but God. Nobody. So that's my stance at it. And here we are.
Amen. Look, sis, and I agree with like what you said, like about God, but I'm telling you, don't think God that lived in you, because had it not been for God being in you and you putting your boots on the ground and you was not taking no for answer like how I'm doing, and I'm praying that my day coming soon where I could be like, we can have a little glory party going on when everybody be behind. But I wanted to know, did they get caught because of the award? I feel like that award should have went to you, my sister. Like every dime of it should have went to you, because you were the one who's been keeping it going.
So that's a good, thank you. On my page, if you guys, my name is Nortasha Stingley. That's uppercase N-O-R apostrophe uppercase T-A-S-H-A. And my last name is Stingley, S-T-I-N-G-L-E-Y. On my page, they have I have been blessed with, people have been asking me about the reward money. There's a $15,000 reward that I had. The way I got it, Spike Lee. I was in the movie Chirac, and I was telling Spike Lee what happened to my daughter. All of a sudden, when they were in the process of filming the Spike Lee movie Chirac here in Chicago, they brought us like moms in to be in the movie and stuff and to talk to us. And when they brought us in, I started telling him what happened, and he couldn't believe what I was telling him. So he stopped everything. Just imagine me in a room with hundreds of cameras and all these reporters from around the world. And all of a sudden, he just yelled, everybody effing stop. Stop everything. Just stop. Shut up. Don't nobody say nothing. And I'm like, well, standing there by. And he like, go get Father Michael Flavor. And Father Flager came in. He was like, all right, y'all do what y'all want to do. We went into this little area in the room, and he was like, what you want? And I was like, I don't want nothing. I just want this person. He was like, well, the first thing we're going to do for you, I want to do for you is donate and start a reward fund. I fell out. Because I'm going to be honest, I thought I was going to have to get on my back and do some strange things for some change. You know? But when you go and pray and you believe God, you ain't going to have to do that. God will provide for you.
Yes.
He's a provider, a way they got another way. Because I don't like that other stuff, going to the truck stops and doing that. But reward money, I was gonna have to do what I have to do to my daughter. You hear me? Because I'm just being faithful and honest. I'm being the real Christian, telling the truth and shame the devil.
That's right.
I'm gonna get on my back and get some money to start a reward fund. I'm telling you what I'm gonna do.
I know that's right.
So when I was at that reward fund, I'll never forget, it was raining, and I was in the rain passing out the flyers for $5,000 reward. So Pastor Corey Brooks here in Chicago, Pastor Corey Brooks, he's the rooftop pastor that stayed on the roof for days trying to stop the violence and everything here. He was like, what you doing out here in the rain like this? I'm like, well, I'm trying to get this person that killed my daughter, blah, blah, blah. So I'm standing there. He got his phone in his hand, and he texts a text message saying, I'm going to donate $10,000 to you. I fell out again. I said, God, you sure live doing a lot of miracles for your little child. He said, I don't want you laying on your back doing nothing. I'm going to do all the work for you. You just keep passing out the flies, and I'm going to keep passing you the blessing. So that's how that ended up, me getting a $15,000 reward. And so now they want to say, people asking me, how can I get the reward? I feel like it was nobody but God. It was nobody but God. And, you know, I didn't ask for the reward, but people was asking me about it. I don't know about it. They started a petition on my page to try to get the people to donate, give me the money, you know, and I could use the money, you know, life is, you know, so. But I don't really care about the money. I just care about the man off the street and nobody getting hurt no more by this man. I appreciate the gesture, but I just thank God. thank God that, he off the streets.
Amen. I love you, my queen. I love you because you keep it real. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yes.
Well, yeah,
I don't know if you guys know, but me and this sister, you know that documentary me and you was on when I first met you.
Black Lives Matter foreign correspondent.
Yes. And
they came from Australia.
Yeah, so the thing that touched me, what you said that was so profound, oh my God, when you said that you said hell
was running here free.
Yeah, say it one more time for the people in the back.
Hell is empty and all the devils and demons are running here free.
Amen. Yeah.
And that's the truth now. Y'all think that's a joke. We are in a spiritual warfare. That's why they can't understand why all these kids are killing people, why we have wars, why we have a pandemic. When the church closed, have y'all ever known the church to close? But people still don't see that. They think I be crazy because I be talking about God all the time. Talking about I be talking to him and all that. Y'all keep thinking I'm crazy. God gonna take me crazy all the way to the bank. Surely is all the way till he get tired of doing his blessings for me. Keep blessing me, God. Keep on blessing me and doing what you do.
I'm right there with you, sis. Like I said, I'd rather go my whole entire life believing in 1 second not. That believe that
you get in front of Judgment Day and he asks you, well, I was trying to show you and get you to believe, but you was listening to what people said and doing what people told you to do. So now you stand right here and wait till I decide to let you in the gate. Now people gonna be shocked when that happened to them at the gate.
Got that right. Definitely got that right. So I definitely appreciate you, my queen. Do anybody want to ask our beautiful queen anything or share any comments with our queen? Mic check.
Mic check.
Yeah, Natasha, do you know when the trial's coming up?
Well, by them just getting him, they do all the like proceedings, motions and things like that or whatever, the bond and all that stuff like that. So he have another court date. Actually, I think it is tomorrow, like something they were saying that's gonna happen tomorrow, the 3rd. So, I gotta find out. I've never been through nothing like this, so it's gonna take me some time.
All right, I hope things go really well for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you so much. God bless you.
And Natasha, make sure you keep me posted because if possible, I definitely want to fly out and come down to the trial just to show my support.
Well, yeah, I'm praying. Another thing, I'm really praying that COVID hurry up and get away. So, I couldn't go in and you can't see anything. Like when they have it where you can Zoom, look at it on YouTube, but you can't see anything. You only see a black screen and you could just hear their voices. So
I'm telling you now, just make sure you do your little speech that the sentencing speech where you get to tell his butt off. Make sure you write that thing now and be ready because it's coming.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'm praying for it because, they were saying that I read in a news article, they did a newspaper article, and they were saying that this guy was adamantly saying that he did not do it and that there's not a lot of evidence and all that stuff, and that I put my name, and that's dangerous. You never know who this man know or who he's connected to or whatever. Put my name and said, well, the mother pushed for him, Miss Stingley pushed for him to go to jail and yada yada this and this, and which I did. I don't have a problem with that, but just you have to be careful with what you put out there and things of that nature. Even though I'm protected, God is my protection. So, but that just didn't sit well with me, putting me out there to say, oh, well, she pushed for it and she got him locked up and this and this and this.
I was wondering what you said about the court not being visible. We've been doing court watch in Prince George's County, and they've suddenly stopped us from being able to see anything.
That's because people like we on this video now. Somebody I have a phone, video on it, and take it and put it on Facebook or social media, taking pictures of people in there. Maybe they're in there for molesting or raping somebody. They'll take a picture of them and put their picture on there and say, oh, they in court right now for something, or they, you know, they're recording it, putting it on Facebook Live, or people that can shot kids and stuff like that. And they're saying that that's why they blacking out the screens and stuff, so people can stop doing that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's the issue here in Baltimore. I just saw a excerpt by Justin Fenton on that, where they're talking about intimidation via social media.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, these spirits, these people think I'm playing about these demons. These demons is at a rampage. They using every aspect. They using social media, they using the radio, they're using the TV, they're using any platform that they can to cause havoc, to cause trouble. You know what I'm saying? It's just too much.
Wow. Does anybody else have any questions for our queen? Comments? I guess we can keep it moving. And sis and Kenji, if y'all want to hold on, please hold on. But if you guys got some things to do, I respect your time. So if you guys gotta hop off, just let me know. We can say our goodbyes. We'll see you ladies. I don't like to say goodbye. I like to say see you later.
See you later.
Yeah, so we thank you, and you have all of our support. Like I said, keep us posted. And again, how can we reach you? How can we reach you?
If you would like to reach me, I'll email. It's Nortasha Stingley. That's NORTASHASTINGLEY @yahoo.com. No spaces, all lowercase letters. Nortasha Stingley @yahoo.com. You can reach me that way. I'm also on Facebook. I don't know if anyone wants my cell phone number.
Well, look, just give them. I don't trust these creeps on Facebook. I'm sorry. So just give them the email. We can translate information later. Because I don't trust. You might get a stalker.
Okay. Well, the email is sufficient. If you email me and anything you would like to know or anything of that nature. But I would ask if you would like to sign a petition or anything for the donation. That would be great as well. I appreciate so much any support that as well. Prayers. Thank you. I need them. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Thank you all for listening to my story, for having me on West Wednesday. I appreciate you so much, my dear sister. Brothers, I appreciate you. Sisters, I appreciate you for being here. God bless you all, and may God continue to bless you all.
Thank you, sis. And how can we find that petition so that we can?
It's on my Facebook page. If you go on my Facebook page, a young lady put a post up like the petition on there, the reward petition. If you scroll down and look at like different posts on there, her name is Tara B. TERABEE. She started the petition. So, and maybe you could type my name in Facebook or type about the reward fund for Nortasha Stingley, and maybe you can put that on there. But you can look on my page, Tawanda, and you'll see it. If you don't, just let me know, and then what I'll do is I'll share it on your page. How about you share it on your page?
Okay, and I'll make sure I share it on my page too, my queen Natasha. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. And this is videoed, and again, you can watch it on YouTube. If you hashtag West Wednesday, you'll be able to see it. And plus, before you got here and joined us, I was letting you know that Mickey, he basically makes little short, small clips of each speaker. So he'll make a little small clip, and you know all we ask you to do is to share. You can share it on your own page again. So, and then he always does a fabulous putting all this together. So thank you again, my queen.
Thank you as well. Thank you guys so much.
How can we reach you, my brother? Before I bring my next guest down here, how can we reach you, Kenji, to support you?
My mic. Hey, just keep pushing the city of Baltimore to do something about all these homicides. You know, that's where we are right now. We're going into the next legislative session, asking that they return the cremains of homicide victims and poor people back to their families. You know, when they cremate for the state of Maryland, we don't have a burial fund. And so they dispose of those cremains and don't return them to families. And we're asking that they return those cremains to those families. And so those are some of the things that we will be doing. So you can ask your state legislators to support that. ask them to support a comprehensive mental health bill so that we can do some create access points in our public schools for our kids so we can start talking about reducing violence. We all know that it's hard to fix a broken man. It's easier to fix a broken child. If we want to reduce violence, we have to start working on our babies. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much, my brother, for sharing it. So, no further ado, I'm going to bring up our next guest, Mr. Donnie. I call him Mr. Because like I said, he does so much, and with the Black Wall Street from everything. So, no further ado, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. Mic check.
Mic check.
So, Tawanda, what are we doing?
No, you can just tell us what you do, and we just take it from there. Just tell us all the wonderful stuff you do, my brother.
Well, let me lift up some people. Let me lift up you and Nortasha. This is indeed spiritual warfare. And so we pray God's strength and protection around both of you and the people on your team, because it's serious out here. It's life and death. And, Nortasha is such a profound example of having no fear and knowing who we are and whose we are. Kenji, thank you for the work you do. And for the white people that I don't know, and I've seen a couple of you, there's a movie that you got to watch. Everybody's got to see it. There's a movie out called The Good Lord Bird. You ever heard of it?
No. Is it on
Yeah, I
Netflix
heard.
or YouTube?
No,
Ethan is in it. What's his name? Ethan Hawke?
Is
I
it
think
on
it's
Netflix?
Ethan Hawke. Yeah, Ethan Hawke is in. He's starring in it. And it's the movie about the life of John Brown. He's my favorite white man in all of history. You know why, right?
Wow.
He is. Because he led a slave insurrection. He was killed. He was hanged for working to abolish slavery. I thought everybody knew him. John Brown.
He was
Harper's
headquartered not
Ferry,
too far from here in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia.
Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Now I'm doing a book right now. It'll be finished on Black Wall Street. And I've just learned that John Brown had a strong reputation in Kansas because blacks looking to leave the deep South were looking at places like Oklahoma, but also Kansas. And Kansas was revered because that's where John Brown was. And so, Tawanda, you have been able to get help that a lot of people don't get. And they are bold. You ever look at the penny, Tawanda?
You said a penny?
Yeah, the penny. You see what direction Abe Lincoln is looking? Abe Lincoln is looking in a different direction than the cats on the quarter, the dime, and the nickel. You ever seen that?
I never noticed that. I gotta check that out.
Well, the legend has it that he was painted that way because he turned his back on his brothers.
That's exactly what I was not to interrupt you. I was just about to say he turned his back on them. He didn't want to do what they were doing. Wow.
So while slavery was abolished in the North by 1804, it lasted in the South until 1865. And so what we're dealing with in Baltimore is the ghosts, the remnants of unhealed issues. We have if anybody can look at this and say race is not a problem, then they are the problem. But the challenge in Baltimore is that it's 9-1 Democrat. And so that means the 9 Democrats are angels and the 1 Republican is the devil. But the truth be told, the 9 Democrats all cover each other. And as long as you drink the Democratic Kool-Aid and play the game and don't buck the system, stay in line, then you will get yours. As for those people you promised to serve when you were trying to get elected, That's East and West Baltimore. That's neglect. When Kenji, thanks for mentioning Freddie Gray. I live in Sandtown. The paddy wagon took Freddie Gray all around. But this neighborhood has only seen one thing since 2015. That's a renovated Western District Police Station. That's the only thing that's come here. But you got major nonprofits with national and international connections that collect money. They write these grants. We call them poverty pimps. But they write these grants because they're coming here to help the poor, uneducated, impoverished, malnourished Black community. And we're going to work with them. We're going to give them job skills and training. And we're going to do all of these wonderful things. And at the end of the grant, the CEO, well, the executive director probably lives in Howard County, and the problems ain't the same. But it's a deep racism that's in effect. And I think the first thing we got to do, the same thing with a drug addict, we got to say we're racist.
Mm-hmm.
We've never acknowledged it. Like in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they've never acknowledged we did you wrong. And a drug addict can never get help. I can never get help as a drug addict if I never say, hey, I got a problem, and go where I can get some help. So if you gave all of the Black people in Baltimore therapy, but you didn't give white people any therapy, it was a complete waste. Because we all have issues that we have to address. And a lot of times it's stuff in our own family, our own private lives, but we act out and we find a convenient enemy. And in America, the convenient enemy, culprit, just turn on the 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock news. It's the young Black males shooting up each other. But nobody ever says anything about the schools that have been closed in East and West Baltimore. Yeah. Nobody, when you look at the 1973 Maryland State Lottery legislation, the first thing they promised was money for education. Somewhere along the line that got eased out of the legislation and it goes into the general fund. But if you look downtown, you got a new football stadium and a new baseball stadium. What you don't have is classrooms that are warm in the winter and cool, or at least, livable in the warmer months. No, we got classes with icicles. Yeah. And then they come back again recently, table gambling, slots, video machines. Number one, money for education. Baltimore City Public Schools, somebody's making a lot of money over there delivering an inferior product. And we all should be outraged, because if I'm white in a majority Black city where the Black kids are not being educated, I'm fearful, because an uneducated person is much more likely to pull out a gun and do something stupid than someone who has some job skills, that has some education, a couple of master's degrees. That guy's going to go to work. That woman's going to go to work. But we're in a city delivering an inferior educational product. We're chasing businesses away. This is the most anti-business city that I know. Maybe it's because I live here, but the things, the legislation, the licenses, the rules, the taxes, it chases businesses away. So nobody wants to be here. Thank God we got a halfway winning football team, because Baltimore was a really depressing city on a Monday after the football defeat. I don't know what the score is right now, by the way. But we need each other. And why Baltimore doesn't invest in the Black community? Honestly, the way I see it, living here in Sandtown, they're waiting for us to OD, kill each other, die, or move.
Yeah.
And who's in my alley? With all due respect, I got white people living in my alley. Now, if I was shooting dope in an alley 8 blocks east of here in Bolton Hill, they would lock my Black ass up quicker than a Baltimore speed camera. That's Baltimore. It goes back to J. Barry Mahou. He was known as the father of segregation. He was the mayor. There's a street in West Baltimore called McMecken Street. That's named after George McMecken. He and his compadre, Ashby Hawkins, were both lawyers. And on a regular basis, those two camps would go at each other, kind of like, you know, Martin O'Malley, Andre Bunley, something like that, I guess. But they used to give him hell. But J. Barry Mahou, remember Baltimore and its segregation. Kenji talked about Black people being better off during segregation. My dad would tell me of a time when Blacks could not live above North Avenue or west of Fulton Avenue. Baltimore's housing and segregation policies were replicated around the country. This is the home of segregation. And it's so sad. This is 2020. What are you doing? Why? So petty. There are Black people I would push in the harbor, but there's some white people I would push in the harbor too. My point is, assholes come in all flavors. And why we're so stuck on this race thing, Black elected officials in a majority Black city for driving a damn car. One lane here, they're chasing everybody. 55. I'm not crossed, but everywhere you look, it's a damn bike lane. Why? Thank you.
Y'all got church for free tonight. Thanks for real quick before I go to the panel and ask them, do they have any questions? How can we reach you? And how can we support you?
Well, we always looking for advertisers for BeMoreNews.com. I can be reached. Hey, call me. I got a German Shepherd. He waiting right here. And I got a stick. And I live in Sandtown, so we ain't got no problem giving you the phone number. That was a joke. 443-858-2684. 443-858-2684. My website is BeMoreNews.com. BMORE-news.com. It's 18 years old. We push business, we push public education, we push elected officials, Democrat or Republican. Quite honestly, I've seen Baltimore City get more from Hogan than I have from some of the Democratic candidates. And also, with all of these elections and all of these people running for office, I implore everyone, stay on top of your elected officials. Call them in Annapolis, 841-3000. Call them at City Hall, 396-3100. Call them on their cell phone. Call them at their mistress's house. Call them at the strip club. Letters. Don't let them off the hook. Stay in their face. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. City Hall don't want to hear from me because I'm going to stay on it until the job is done. We got to make people do their jobs. And the police, the police with the consent decree, nothing's going to happen. Right now, Baltimore is lawless. It's reckless. Everybody's got a gun. And the police are taking a knee ever since the consent decree. Now, the dirty cops, I saw, a couple of the city just paid up $10 million last week. There's a lot more to that. And they took a lot of drug dealers' money. Not just the ones that are in the news. They took a lot of dope dealers' money.
Well, y'all heard it. So, mic check. Do any of the panelists want to ask our brother Donnie anything or give any comments?
Yeah, Donnie, I want to add a couple of things about John Brown and then raise a question about racism. I think the reason that John Brown was so highly respected in regard to Kansas is because when Kansas was going to come in as a new state, the question was it going to come in as a slave state or a free state? And they basically had a civil war before the Civil War in Kansas. And John Brown was one of the main leaders of the forces against slavery there. And it, indeed, as I recollect, it did come in as a free state, largely through the efforts of people that he helped to lead. It was a very sharp struggle. One thing that's not so well known about John Brown is that the insurrection he led in Harper's Ferry, Harriet Tubman helped to plan that. and she was gonna,
but she
was gonna be there, right? But she was sick. But she went up to Canada, organized the Chatham, Ontario conference to recruit people to participate, and one of those people did participate. And Brown and Tubman had a high degree of respect for one another. And I think if she had been there, and if we defeated slavery through their approach, blow against racism, it's interesting to speculate if Tubman could have been there. And what's the point? You were talking about racism as sort of the leftovers from slavery and the legacy. But I personally, in the modern world, in the modern United States, not only as a legacy, but because it serves the needs of wealthy business owners, about a third of their profits derive from paying people of color lower wages. And in some regards, modern racism is hurting people more severely and more widely than even all the horrors of slavery. For example, as awful as it was not close to the number of people being killed by police today. It's much worse now in terms of lives being stolen. I just wanted to raise that question, see what you think. In my opinion, modern racism has roots that are new and that lead to its reaffirmation generation after generation in the current context.
Well, that doesn't make sense. The roots are the same. Greed, money. What gets me, especially as I was watching the Trump Republicans, is, and I have a question for you. Are people in the South, white people in the South, with the Confederate flag, are they mad because they didn't have free labor anymore? Because my understanding is Europeans came to America for religious freedom, from freedom from oppression in England, among other places. How do you flee oppression only to go and oppress someone else? It's kind of like you mentioned Frantz Fanon's Wretched of the Earth. It made me think of pedagogy of the oppressed, that the oppressed of the oppressor. I don't understand how anybody can be mad at me because I don't want to be their slave. Isn't it hilarious? The fuck? Really? Go pick your own shit. Pick your own. And that's the beauty also of Tulsa's Black Wall Street as we go into this 100th commemoration of the destruction of Black Wall Street, May 31st. This was a Black community that had developed and evolved businesses in a 35 square block area when, surrounding white businesses were floundering. And doesn't it benefit everyone when the Black community is doing well? It benefits the entire country. I just don't get it.
Well, I don't think that racism is new either. I remember, my family is from Mississippi, and I remember in 1976, I was 6 or 7 years old. Never will forget this. My grandmother was traveling down 55 South. The sister from Chicago might know something about that. And we were in between Memphis and in Blytheville, Arkansas. Grandma had to use the bathroom, and my grandmother and my uncle were still concerned about stopping at gas stations in these southern states. And she pulled over at night, got out the car, pulled her panties down and heisted her dress and used the bathroom. I would never, ever in my life forget about that. White folk want to act like what happened to us. See, I got an issue when white folks start minimizing slavery. When my daddy was the cousin of Emmett Till's, I never met Mamie, but he always talked about him because he was from West Illinois. He was from Searcy, Arkansas. And he talks about that story all the time to the day he died. There is nothing like black lynching, because now the police may shoot us on the street, but my great uncle went to the war, World War I, and William Sams was a World War I veteran. They brought veterans back from World War I and hung them from the phone poles in their uniform. There ain't nothing like what our folk went through. My great grandfather came here from the sugar plantation on a slave ship, and he was sold to a slave master in Mississippi by the name of Weatherby. My great grandmother was a slave in Bluefield, Mississippi, in Virginia, before it became West Virginia, and she was sold from her husband because he ran away all the time. She took my great uncles, Tommy and Frankie, to Mississippi and married Henry. That's how we started. So I don't understand how. No. The roots ain't left, because what you think happened to all of those folk that was in Mississippi in the 60s, beating the hell out of people? They just didn't disappear after 1968 with Lyndon B. Johnson. Where did they go? They didn't evaporate. What happened was, you can no longer beat the hell out of diggers. You can't take a digger and hang them from the pole anymore. Come on now. You can't throw a bomb in a black church anymore and blow up little black girls. I'm a baby of the 60s. It ain't been that long ago. I'm sorry, excuse me for being emotional about that, but
and black people have guns now. So it was much worse back then. Matter of fact, it's worse for white people now, because this younger generation have plainly stated they are not their grandfather's generation.
And they ain't playing.
They are not playing. So we got a better chance today. A much better chance.
I probably didn't express myself too clearly. And it's definitely true that racism was horrible during the period of slavery. I didn't mean to trivialize that. I remember, for example, that reading that when the cotton gin came out, they could now process more cotton than ever before. And they came to the conclusion, the slave owners came to the conclusion that they were going to work people to death over 7 years. That was the most efficient use of slave labor. So I agree with you that was a horrible system. My point was simply that the racism we see today is not only left over from that time period, but there are new reasons in the current society why they continue to recreate racist thinking, and it benefits certain people in power. That was the point I was trying to make. I'm sorry if I didn't make it clearly.
They say it benefits them, but when white folks now have half black grandchildren, how the hell does that benefit them? You know, the more we live together, the more our destinies are intertwined. And so what you do point out is that rich white people don't like poor white people no more than they like black people.
On the Donnie, on the point you raised about, you asked me what my opinion was about why white people in the South are so racist.
Yeah, why are you mad? Because I don't want to be a slave.
Yeah, well, W.B. Du Bois in his book, The Civil War and Black Reconstruction, he pointed out that in the South during the period of slavery, only about 5% of the white population owned slaves. Most of the whites were sharecroppers. And slavery hurt them in a sense because they got the worst leftover land. And they were not doing very well themselves. But the slave owning class was in power. So they taught racist ideas to people as intensely as they could. And then after the Civil War, that's when they started the Klan, because some of the freed slaves and poor white sharecroppers were getting together to take over the estates, share them up, and help each other. And they wanted to split that movement. So the Klan was begun. So I think there were forces in the South that taught racism to poor white folks generation after generation intensely. So now, if you go south, wages get lower and lower the further south you go. And that's largely because the South is non-union, because white people were unwilling to unite with black people to form unions in the industries in the South. So, yeah, I agree with you that it hurts white people. And I think that in answer to your question, as far as I understand, the reason so many white people in the South and elsewhere too, liberalism is a form of racism too, I think. But I think the history of it is that the people who held power worked very hard to inculcate those racist ideas in the white population. Lerone Bennett, who used to be the Black history writer for Ebony, made that point, that it had to be retaught generation after generation after generation, because it wasn't a natural way of thinking. It was a taught way of thinking. So that's my opinion.
Do you believe in karma?
Well, to be honest with you, what kind of world do we live in when you can go rent a person? Right. It's still the same. It's still the same thing. I mean, you're talking about Maryland. My family from Mississippi down south. I think those numbers change. It may be 1% of the people may own a slave, or 5% or the 10%. But if they own hundreds of slaves, it was the same injury. It didn't matter how many white people owned them. It was the fact that it was slavery, the institution itself. I don't give a damn. If you was living in the South, very few free black people lived in Memphis, lived in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Georgia, in Florida, and Texas. Hell, Donnie, you said 1865. Slavery didn't end in 1865 if you lived in Texas. Wasn't it 2 years later? 1868. Before they freed the slaves in the state of Texas. So, I mean, it doesn't matter how many, the percentage, because we really don't know. Unless we're really doing some serious genealogies, that's a real low number. And that means if you had 1%, if 0.5% of people own 500,000 slaves, it's still slavery. And it was still legal, and they were still chattel, and they were still considered a third of a person.
Let me add in there one fact about Baltimore. Did you know that Baltimore had the largest population of freed blacks prior to the Civil War? Baltimore was a town where blacks had come in to seek freedom. Next stop is the Mason-Dixon line. So there's been this perpetual question, as shared with me by one of my mentors, about the Negro dilemma, what to do with all of these black people.
Chuck a few things in here just because we're, sort of in what we're talking about. The first is, if you're interested in John Brown and Harper's Ferry and what would have happened if everyone had been, if everyone had been there, there's a book called Fire on the Mountain, and it's a science fiction book about 1940s America after John Brown's successful rebellion. And the South has become essentially a communist nation. And I think most of the Appalachian area and west of that is a black-led communist nation, and they've gone to the moon by 1940 in that book. And so the book, part of what the book does is it talks about how that rebellion went and what it led to. And so that's just a kind of an interesting thing to look at if you want to read a really interesting book. It's called Fire on the Mountain. The other thing I want to talk about in terms of Donnie talking about America being settled by people who were coming for religious freedom, that was true up north, essentially north of the Mason-Dixon line. Down south and to the east, where the original lower half of the 13 colonies were, those were settled by rich land grant recipients from England. They were settled by essentially the upper crust people who would be given land grants, and they would bring their servants over, and they had indentured servants who came with them. And so slavery kind of grew directly out of that, but the power base in that area was never about religious freedom. It was always about making money in that land. And in How to Be an Anti-Racist, Kenchy talks about the idea that racism comes from holding slaves. You know, that he sees a lot of the origin of American racism in the holding of slaves in the first place. These people had to have slaves in order to make money at very low profit margin things like tobacco and cotton. And so they held these slaves. And so therefore, in order to justify it and make themselves feel that they could do this, they had to dehumanize those people. And that's the root of American racism right there.
Well, that and the truth too, there was some, the religionists came after. They wanted, see, England had all of these people, they had all of their criminals, and they wanted to get rid of those criminals, and they brought them here first. Australia itself was a prison, you know, before it became a country, and that was the way they dumped people. And then you had your Anabaptists and all those people who didn't want to really settle with the state church, which is the Anglican church or the Episcopal church now. And so then they came. Right. And when we talk about indentured servitude, what happened was, for real, they had white indentured servants who would serve the 7 years, and their 7 years was up, but they would run away before the 7 years was up, and because they was white, they would blend in. Somebody came up with the concept, let's go get some Negroes. Around about 1619, they birthed their first 20 black slaves here, and guess what? When they tried to enslave the Indians, it was the Native Americans. They could get away because they knew the land. They brought black folks here who couldn't speak, and guess what? You cannot blend in if you black in a white America, even then. That's the slavery. That's the birth of slavery here. It was skin color.
Yeah, that format, that format of indentured servitude, of unpaid service, was already there, and they just moved the black people into it and justified that by saying they were less than human, and that's where it starts from. And then Bill, I think, has a point that now racism has persisted from that day to this because it's very valuable. And this is again what you see in How to Be an Anti-Racist. He talks about having black people being racist is very valuable to white people, not only because they lower wages, which, you know, like Bill says, but also because you can take and concentrate a lot of people in an area, give that area very low value in terms of real estate, and that raises the value of the other areas outside. And especially if you don't allow those black people to buy those houses because of redlining and those sorts of things, the value in that land never goes up, but all the other land, the value is raised up. So there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of reasons why racism is a valuable property for the upper classes. But I'm like you. I grew up in North Carolina in the 70s, and you know there were still sundown towns, and there was still where did they take that? You remember Smithfield, North Carolina? You familiar with that? Smithfield,
home of the KKK. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I taught at Smithfield Middle School, and I always heard the stories about how that was a sign the Klan had, and they would show you the pictures that the Klan had as you go into Smithfield, North Carolina, in Johnston County. It said the home of the Klan. If you black, you got to be out of here by sundown.
That's right.
That sign stayed up to the 70s.
Yeah, there was a town not too far from I don't remember the name of the town right now, but we used to like go through there on trips that we would take out to the beach and stuff. And there was a sign on a sign that said "N-word, get your ass out of town by sundown." And that was
I got a question for you now, and kind of jumping back a little bit when we talk about the colonized slavery during the colonial period. You know, one of the things they had to do too, and Donnie kind of hit on it earlier about the pedagogy of the press. One thing you had to do with white folk when you were bringing them out of slavery and they was transitioning over to skin color slavery and race-based slavery is that you had to empower white folk by telling them that you better than these niggas. And so no matter how poor you is, and that's why we talk about the white power structure at the top and how racist they are, but we're more than likely to engage people on our level who are racist, what do you say about poor white folks who tend to be more racist overtly than middle-class white people?
Well, I think that they're like you said, they've been trained this. And you remember Martin Luther King when he went up to Chicago, and he says, well, black people weren't allowed, in the South, they don't have unions because of racism. The unions up north were racist, and they kept black people out, just like they kept them out into suburbs. And the white people, many people who like assaulted Dr. King in Chicago, were only one generation off the boat themselves. They were they were immigrants, and their parents were immigrants from the Slavic nations, from Czechoslovakia, places, Poland, places like that, and Italy.
You talking about your ethnic whites?
They were trying to prove, they were trying to achieve whiteness. They were trying to become part of that system, and the best way for them to do that was to be more racist than anybody else.
And I think I'm gonna kind of agree with you there, because St. Louis, I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois, and St. Louis remains still one of the most polarized cities in the country. People don't talk about it too much, but it's still pretty much racially divided. And so when Donnie talks about the South, I'm from the Midwest, born and raised, and you don't get no more racist.
No.
You think about what's going on in Milwaukee and Minnesota. We ain't hearing black folk unless you go to Texas. You ain't hearing about a whole bunch of black folk getting shot in Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. These black folk are being shot in northern Midwestern cities.
Yeah.
Why? Because nobody never talks about Midwestern racism. I lived it. I lived there. I experienced it. I went to Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, and you're talking about some of them. I grew up in East St. Louis, thank God. It's a poor city, but everybody in my city was black. When I went to college, I said, God damn, it's white people. I didn't see white people every day. So if you didn't leave East St. Louis, you didn't see white folks. And when you got there, I saw some of the most racist white folks. My grandmother grew up in a time where she didn't like white folks, and we were raised that way. And so when I got ready to go to college down there, I said, Grandmama, what kind of advice you want to give to your grandson going off to college? She said, don't trust white folk because they smell, and don't trust niggas either because they'll eat a mile of white folk shit. Never will forget that. Because that was her experience. And so we in the North, she left Mississippi. Her and my granddad them sold whiskey, and they had to leave. And so she came to St. Louis in 45. And they left for a better life, even though they was faced with the challenges of the South. But when they moved north, they would apply for jobs, because my cousin Lucille, she died when she was about 100. So one day I was over house in the 1980s, and she saved all the newspaper because they made me go to college. And I'm sitting down, and she said, read this. And I'm reading papers from 1940s, and in ads in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, when they would ask for a black servant, they would list, them the skin tone. Light-skinned Negro want it. Dark-skinned Negro want it. That's how they advertised in the 40s to hire black people to do certain jobs. And that was up there.
Did not apply.
Yeah. And that's, and so when we talk about racism, we cannot sectionalize it to the South. We cannot sectionalize it to class. Racism is like an artery in the vein, in the body of America, It's going to always be there. But how we respond to it, it's just like being an alcoholic. I went to treatment for 30 days. I was an alcoholic. I drank every day. And in order for me to first start healing from my alcoholism, I had to admit that the problem existed. White folk got to stop trying to intellectualize racism and water it down. We have to realize that racism in America is alive and well, and as black folk, we got to stop thinking it just exists in the South. And we gotta stop thinking just white folk are racist. Hell, I think that some of the biggest racists in our country. If you read E. Franklin Frazier's book, Black Bourgeoisie, I loved it. I did it when I read the book when I was writing my thesis. He talks about black people and how their self-image was so screwed up. In the 1940s and 50s, we had black people who was getting PhDs and going to grad school, but they would not rely on the intellect of other black people of the same educational class. They would validate themselves by their approval of white people. They would say stuff like, oh, my daughter, she's married, she has the hair like an Indian. She has straight hair. When you read the book, you will read how middle-class black folk had this self-hatred of each other, and then that self-hatred was reflected on black people of another class. We call it intra-racism. We don't talk about it, but that's one of the reasons we have so many homicides in this city right now, in Chicago, in St. Louis, is because we as black people have to learn to love each other. We have to learn to stop hating each other. And that, sir, I believe is a product of white racism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would not.
Racism also comes out of a lot of ignorance. When we look at world history, we don't know, for instance, that the shrine of the Black Madonna is revered across Europe. Every picture of Jesus in America is of a white Jesus. But when you look at the shrine of the Black Madonna, that even the Pope bows down to, this is revered across Europe. Or you look at what was happening prior to slavery in the 13th, 14th, 15th centuries, when you had the Moors all throughout Europe, from Spain to Portugal. The Moors were royalty across Europe. You can look at the coat of arms of Ireland, of Scotland, of Germany, of Spain, and you see black people in royal positions. Or if you look at European art, you got blacks who were in dominant positions in Rome and throughout. But American history books is a big part of continuing this miseducation. And not to say anyone is better, just saying that everybody brings something to the table. And like Kenji said, not every black person is our friend. Not every white person is our enemy. But it's just not enough of us. COVID should have taught us this. 9/11 should have taught us this, that we need each other. But we are so, as Americans, we're as stuck on stupid as Baltimore is as a city stuck on stupid. We're stuck on stupid.
Wow, this conversation really heated up and it's really good. Like, it definitely needs to be talked about and everything. So I definitely want to thank everybody for the input. And this is a conversation that we definitely need to keep on revisiting and rehabbing. And I just love everybody's passion here tonight. Like, everybody's coming from a place of love. Some even coming from a place of uncertainty. But at the same time, we want real change to happen. So I definitely appreciate y'all. But to kind of keep it moving for time's sake, do we have the list of the homicides, Brian?
Yeah, we do.
And then we can add on too, since we got the correspondent that knows all about it. He'd like to add to update us or enlighten us after you bring it in.
He can go ahead. I think he got it.
Okay, cool.
You would just say, I got to get that. Here it is.
All right. Oh, and before we go into that, I wanted to give a big shout out on the happy side to our sister Queen Nicole. It's her birthday today as well. Her birthday. So just wanted to wish her a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you, everybody. I do have something, although it's my birthday, I have something for y'all. You know, normally I do the singing, but I have a song that's for y'all that was made by my son. If you don't mind me playing it real quick.
Oh, not at all. Go for it, sis.
It's 8 o'clock.
Hey, give me 1 second. I'm trying to get it on there. I wish you would have already looked it up.
Oh, it's dry. Oh, what's the day? Tuesday?
Wait a minute, it's coming.
Take your time, Queen.
Okay. I think you're really gonna like this song when you hear it, and it's definitely fitting for what we are discussing right now. Here we go.
So they shot because they couldn't kill my vision. A vision description. Yeah. They set off with the description. so they shot me because they couldn't kill my bitch. I fit the description. Yeah. We all fit the description. Yeah. Still I see no changes. He's steady trying to strip me of my rights. Politically abusive is the hype. Now I'm cold as ice. You paint the perfect picture right. Pick your fences, man, and misses children laughing and they say long as there ain't no niggas. Resolve for it, everybody need Obama change. Now only racial slur contention with Obama's name. Ever gonna change? I think not. That kid was only minding his business when he was shot. So I'm trusting in the hood.
We can barely hear it. Can you put that louder? Because we can barely hear it.
Yeah, put it on. Wait a minute, he's gonna turn it up so you can hear it better.
Yeah, we can barely hear it. It's not like I can.
It's called Fit the Description.
Okay.
Still I see no changes. He's steady trying to strip me of my rights. Politically abusive is the hype. Now I'm cold as ice. You paint the perfect picture right. Pick your fences, man, and misses children laughing and they say long as there ain't no niggas. Resolve for it, everybody need Obama change. Now only racial slurs and tension with Obama's name. Ever gonna change? I think not. That kid was only minding his business when he was shot. So I'm trusting in the hoodie, y'all. What it got? If I don't have my pistol, then I'ma throw a couple rocks. Yeah, I'm fighting back. I think we losing track of what's been really happening. City riots start when high schoolers be ditching classing it. Negative energy don't bring no positive. It's better I'm black and resort to violence, so you say I'm what the problem is. Not making any sense, reality and fiction. But they shot me because they couldn't kill my bitch. I fit the description. Yeah. They said I fit the description. The cow shot me because they couldn't kill my vision. I fit the description. Yeah. They said I fit the description. And so they shot me because they couldn't kill my vision. I fit the description. I'm sick of sacrificial measures and pain. We need to stop making change if we expect any gain. All they want to do is kill us all. They give us tools for our demise, yet we survive. I guess we pissed them off. Second son was born over a week ago. 2015 and we birthing these babies into a war zone. Always live a couple hours from the madness. If my baby mama asked me, she said not contracted. Can't help but think about it. We say we know the law when we caught up with big crimes. Yet when we gun down on the street, it's all the petty violence. They been talking bad about our culture, cause all we do is turn up, pop bottles, and trickle vultures. But yet we're trying to see a better day. I guess it's our relief. What have to cause us pain? I guess we send a message in the vision. Gotta make them pay attention, but I think we find this different way to vet so we don't fit the description. Yeah. They said I fit the description. The cow shot me because they couldn't kill my vision. I fit the description. Yeah. They said I fit the description. And so they shot me because they couldn't kill my vision. I fit the description. Yeah. Right now we fit the description. But I pray we find another way to fit so we don't fit the description. Yeah. Right now we fit the description. But I pray we find another way to fit so we don't fit the description. America needs to make a change. Today, not tomorrow. The time is now. We're living in the last days. Revelations. Get your mind right. Get your time right. Yeah. As Jones.
That was my son.
Yeah, Queen. So that sounded like it could have been fire. Like, only thing I was really able to hear was I fit the description and it sounded like good, but it was black. So if you could actually send it to Ben and maybe he could play it for us for next West Wind, that'd be powerful. Cause that thing, I want to hear it all. Like you could, I guess because you got so much and stuff, but I definitely want to hear that. Please send it ASAP.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I could hear it. Yeah, that beat. It sounds like Tupac a little bit.
I know, but that's my son.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it was your son, but I had to listen to it like that because it was like kind of scary. Because I was like, "Is that Tupac she playing?"
Right, absolutely. Wow, that was well. Thank you for sharing that. But definitely, if you can get your husband, because I know you really not good with the phone and all, but get your husband to definitely send it to Ben, because I definitely want to hear that thing uncut, because I could definitely hear it, and it sounds like hip-hop. I'm like, okay, I felt it, right? But I want to feel it all over. I want to hear it in high definition.
Right, exactly.
Then I realized what he was talking about.
Right.
Then I realized what he was talking about when I got a little closer and could hear it was him, and he was saying that I fit the shoot because I fit the description. And he know about the police fit the description.
Yes.
The description to the somebody else. Is that a casket I see?
A casket where? Oh.
I can't hear what he's saying. Is that a casket we see?
Kenji, you muted.
It might be, because I think if you're looking at our brother Kenji's screen, he does that. Like, he have caskets and everything. So y'all, I can't see it, but
Yeah, that's a casket. I didn't mean to show it. I'm on my phone. My iPad was dying. But no, that's a casket. Y'all sell caskets and urns. So I'm sitting in my casket room.
Oh, I thought you was gonna say you sitting in your casket. It sounded like you said you sitting in your casket. I don't know what y'all heard, but I heard it say
Trust me now.
Why
I
did you
ship
do
a
that?
lot of caskets. I ship a lot of caskets to Chicago.
I bet you do. But I need you to get out that one you talking about you sitting there right now. Talk to us outside the casket.
Oh no, I'm sitting at my table. The casket is behind me.
No, but it sounds like you said I'm sitting in my casket. Didn't it sound like you said?
Oh, no. I'm sitting in my casket room. Yeah. No, I'm sitting in my shop. That's all. I came downstairs. My caskets are and my urns are in the basement of my house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you caught. Well, we don't miss caskets, do
I'm
we?
telling you, that's a woman of God. She see everything.
People think I be playing when I tell them. I see them when they be talking. I hear them when they talk about me. I ain't got to be in the room. I tell them everything they've been said about me. They be like, you spooky, you a witch. I'm a good witch.
Well, unfortunately, I hate to tie this up, but speaking of caskets and sad news, Brother Brian, do you have that list, and are you ready to read that unfortunate list? And if you do have it, it's really sad, because at the end of the day, these are people's families. And again, I wanted to send virtual hugs to my sister Nikki. She just lost her nephew. So when you see the double homicide of the young sweethearts, that is her son was in my class, and I invited her as well to be on here. So she had a lot to do. I got some planning the funeral and things that I need. So I'm just sending oceans of love, because I mean, you took out a whole young couple, just gunned down, murdered, and nobody's caught. Like, I smell a serial killer, and that's all I'm gonna say. But anyway, moving right on. Brother Brian, do you have that horrible list?
Yeah, I have the list for us. I don't see that they're on here, but this list usually runs a little behind because it's based on what the police had released on Monday. That's what I get. But I'll certainly keep an eye out for that. And I just want to say, what I usually say, I usually talk at this point about, the society, how all violence is just part of the society's violence, and how I think that we need to remember that all of this, whether it's racism or the oppressive capitalism or police violence or community violence, it all comes out of the idea that we're somehow alone in this world, and humans have to live in community, and we have to reach out to each other and treasure each other, and that's just how we're built. And so many forces in the empire that we live under try to pull us away from that, because when we're alone, when we're individuals, we're easy to manipulate and easy to hurt. When we hang together and support each other, then we have power. And so if we could express that power now by just calling back these names to me, the people who were killed this week in Baltimore: Brandon Branch, 34.
Brandon Branch, 34.
Bernard Richardson, 44.
Bernard
Richardson, 44.
Anthony Henry Jr., 20.
Anthony Henry Jr., 20.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again,
Thank God the list wasn't longer.
You have two more, but one is unidentified. I don't know if you got Anthony Benson. He was killed on the 30th, and you had a man who was killed today. Actually, yeah, you had one killed on the 30th, and one was killed yesterday.
Right. Yeah, I will probably get those next week. My source for this list is compiles it on Monday and sends it out, and so I just I will probably next week read those other two names.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I would like to just, if I can, just say a little prayer for the families and loved ones of those people, if I may.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Father God, in the name of Jesus, we come to you humbly, Father. We saying thank you, Father, that you are great, you are good, you are the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, Father. Father, I come to you saying thank you, Father. Father, that you will bless those that have lost loved ones on the list that he have read tonight, and those that wasn't on the list, Father, as well, that have lost a loved one, lost a child, lost a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, Father. Father, I ask that you, the comforter, will comfort their minds and their hearts, God, at this time in this season, during the holiday season, Father. Comfort them and bless them and keep those families and loved ones, God. Comfort the children during the holidays that have lost their fathers or their mothers, Father. Oh, God, in the midnight hour, you be their comforter, their buckler and their shield, God. Protect their minds and their emotions and their hearts, God, and you keep them, God. You said look to the hills, and Father, I look towards you to be a comforter for those right now that are grieving during this season. And I thank you, Father, that you will be their comforter, God, and we look towards you, and we thank you, Father, right now for it, that you, God, will do all things for them, and we trust and believe in you. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen. You know any Sams in Chicago?
Huh?
You know any Sams? Sam. Yeah, my family's really in the church in Chicago. A lot of them are preachers, New Evangelical, over on the west side on Washington, and then my cousin has a church, Blooming Rose, over on Halstead. There's a couple other ones up there pastoring, but those two I know for certain. I just left from Chicago back a couple of months ago for a funeral.
Oh, okay. I'm on the south side. I stay by like the university in Hyde Park. I don't know if
you down there. Okay, yeah. They all over, but yeah, I usually be off of 102nd and Wentworth. Well,
okay. I know where that's at.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't really right now, church is closed and everything. Church ain't on.
I know.
Yeah, but I be in church in my own house. I got the closet up in there, so I be up in there.
Okay.
You know about that closet, don't you? I'm a country girl, so when I get to talk about the closet, they be like, "What you talking about the closet? The church room?" Yeah. I'm one of them real Mississippi girls.
What part of Mississippi?
Port Gibson, Mississippi.
Okay, we live in the middle of Brooksville and Columbus.
We're between Natchez and Vicksburg. Like 60 miles from Texas down there, little bitty little something town. Yeah, I'm talking about that racism, boy. People be thinking I be telling the truth. I get mad when they be talking about white trailer trash. I'm black trailer trash. I was born in the trailer.
See?
In the trailer, a little green and white trailer. Them people think I be playing when I tell them that.
That's how I look when I go down to Brookville, Mississippi. Now ain't nothing but trailers down there.
And you hear me? I be telling these people up here in Chicago, they be laughing. They be like, "Girl, you know you ain't came from no trailer." Yes, I did. A green and white.
They don't know, do they?
Yeah. And some of my best friends, I kid you not, and not being funny, I'm being transparent. Some of my best friends right now is white. They do more for me than the black people. I'm trying to tell you. They pay my bills, do everything for me. They my best friend. Baby, when I was homeless, they tried to give me a house and everything. Everything. People with this racism stuff, you gotta stop that. Because guess what? If we ain't had no eyeballs, everybody be black. You hear me? Well, nobody be see nobody. We be able to tell nothing. So if you ain't gonna help me, you ain't got no eyeballs. What does that tell you? Okay? So you gotta look at stuff like that. I don't look at that because God don't look at that. We see what we see with our eyes, but God sees spiritually your inside, your heart, and what you do. Because if you get at the gate, you ain't gonna look like you look now. Best believe when you at the gate, you ain't gonna look like you look now. You look real good in the flesh, but when you get to the gate, you ain't gonna look like that. So get your heart right and your spirit right with God, and quit running around here with these people. That's what I think about.
And the church say amen. And the church
amen.
Bill, do you have that other sad list of all the police terrorism?
Well, as you remember, last week we read a tremendous list of people whose lives were stolen by police. It was 41 people, and that went through November the 22nd. And they have not updated this list since then, so I don't have anyone to add. I do want to mention that tonight at 9 o'clock we'll have the challenge discussion group, and we had the sister of Alex Flores here on West Wednesday one time. When her brother was killed, they had been reading about the weekly rallies we have here, the West Wednesday rallies, and they were inspired. And so they started Flores, that's his last name, Flores Friday rallies on a weekly basis. And they've done some wonderful and powerful and exciting work in the fight against police brutality. So we're going to be reading a report on their work this evening at 9 for those who would like to join in.
All right. Well, before we wrap it up, I want to ask you, anybody have any quick closing thoughts or questions? And I just wanted to just thank everybody. If anybody got any more thoughts or questions, anything they want to share before we wrap up?
I just want to say I enjoyed the interchange of ideas. You know, we're going to be at this a long time fighting racism, and we have to try hard to figure out the best strategies. And I thought tonight was very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you all. This was good conversation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that although this is a sad occasion, as far as our brothers and sisters that are being killed in the streets and stuff by the police, I do want to thank all of you for sharing my day with me, my birthday, and being here with me. You know, as you know, I'm here every week that I can be here. And at first I wasn't going to come, but I said, you know, I'm going to go and support with my brothers and sisters like I do every week. And that's all I have to say.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Yeah, I was just about to say, well, you enjoy the rest of your birthday.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank my sister Natasha for sharing with us. And I'm praying for you, my queen, that you get accountability for your beautiful daughter. And I'm so sorry that her life was stolen. I'm so sorry. I would never ever feel that pain. And I thank my brother Kenji for always being passionate, real, and everything else. I thank my brother Don for always bringing the flame and being real as well. And I thank each and every last one of the West Coalition members. I love you guys. And just like my sister said, if we didn't have any eyes, we couldn't see each other, race and things of that nature. So I always say, live to love, love to live. And I love you guys all. And I will see you guys next week for West Wednesday. And as we came in, we started showing a video, unfortunately, of the brutal murderer, and that's my thoughts. The brutal murderer, Ruiz. He basically pulled my brother over. He was the first officer, him and Chapman, to pull my brother over, and they called over 15 other police killer cops to come murder one unarmed man. And my heart goes out to my brother's children. I know it's tough for them as it is as we approach holidays. Just anytime it's tough, but they know their auntie love them, and I'm gonna always have their back and fight for them. I'm gonna have my family back. So it's just real hard times, and my heart goes out to everybody that's going through something right now, whether it's dealing with murder, it could be financial, it could be anything. I'm just here for you guys. Just reach out for me. I love you guys. But we brought you in with this horrible video of the witnesses. I'm sorry, not the witnesses, the victims, and testifying about what Ruiz did. And this killer cop, unfortunately, is still working the force. You know, it's just really sad. Then I told you guys about the incident that happened with me. I got back in contact with the civilian review board, and they asked me, did I submit my paperwork? I told them how I submitted it and everything. They didn't get it. And I'm not surprised. That's why I have no faith in this sister whatsoever. And she's like, oh, well, go ahead and send it back to me. I'm not even going to go further with it because to me it's sad. It's a joke. Like I did all this stuff damn near a week ago. I think it was on the 20th. Or whenever it was, I gave her all information, told her, she was like, wow, I haven't received. I ran the email, the whole paper that I wrote down and everything. And again, it's on somebody's desk collecting dust. It's probably on Marilyn Mosey's desk collecting dust with all the new evidence that my brother was brutally murdered. The new evidence was that we know that he didn't die from a heart attack. I'm sorry, what you say, Kenji?
Let me tell you something. Now, you don't expect her to do anything, do you? Now, you know she used to have the community court days, right? Where they go out in the community and talk about issues and educate people on the court system. So one day when we were in the office, this was 2015-16, the question came up, when are we going to talk about police brutality? It is a standing rule in the state's attorney's office that they don't have any kind of community engagement education on police brutality. So I doubt very seriously she's going to follow up on anything. And most people don't know that.
Well, again, thank you, my brother, for sharing that. And like I said, I don't have any faith in the system. All I can do, I'm a vessel. All I can do is God work. I could put it out there all day long, and I'm going to constantly keep putting it out there. I'm going to constantly keep on fighting. Even if she don't do something, I feel like at one point or at some point, someone will hear my cries. Because at the end of the day, no one say when you got Killer Ruiz out here, Killer Chapman, repeat violent offender. This wasn't no act where something went wrong. This was something was wrong at the door. These killer cops shouldn't have never been working. They had blood, a taste of blood. It's almost like if a loose stray dog goes through my neighborhood biting and attacking people, and they wind up putting it to sleep, unfortunately, because they got that taste of blood. It's not going to stop. That's the same case with Ruiz and Chapman and these killer cops, David Lewis, every last one of them. But as we brought you in with that video of the victims, unfortunately, the victims, most of them survived, but unfortunately, my brother didn't. And there's way more victims than that. It's way more victims than that, but these are the only ones that we know of. So right now, I still urge you, even though we feel like Marilyn Moore's not going to do nothing, but put our foot to the fire. I need you guys to call her, get actively engaged, and ask her, what is she going to do with all this stuff that's going on with Ruiz? He's back in the eye, the media, all that stuff. He just married a state's attorney's person, Michelle Battle, all this foolishness. They all in the bed together. That's the goddamn problem. But anyway, Ben brought us in with the video. He's going to take us out. But again, live to love, love to live. I love you all. Remember, this is a day that we never seen. Unfortunately, it's a day that we will never see again. So just be kind, be in a loving spirit, and just remember, I can't, but we can. Thank you guys. Love you. Mike.
Thank you all. Love you all.
Love you too.
Have a good night.
And happy birthday again,
Everybody.
Nicole.
Thank you. Everybody have a good night.
Have a good night.
All right. Good night.
And Mr. West begging for his life, and Mr. Salam begging for his child to be excluded and comforted from what was taking place. Not for himself, but for his 3-year-old child.
Case number 4, Adina Britt and family, September 10th, 2015.
My name is Adina Britt, and I wanted to submit a 30-second testimonial that Jorge Omar Bernardez Ruiz is one of the 11 terrorists that came into my house performing a home invasion in September 2015, terrorizing my entire family and even holding my 12-year-old son at gunpoint. He needs to be stopped.
Case number 5, unidentified arrestee, assaulted in 2016.
I suggest you back the fuck up. No.
Again, this video did not surface until the summer of 2020. Case 6, Thomas McCullough, May 2016 and February 2017.
I heard my front door coming off the hinges like it exploded.
Thomas McCullough says it happened twice. In May 2016 and February 2017, Baltimore City Police burst through his green front door and raided his Pimlico home.
They said, police. They come up, shotguns, guns.
He says officers ransacked the place, looking for drugs, money, and weapons. He took pictures of the damage he says they left behind.
Tell us where the drugs are, the scales, the guns, and the large amounts of money.
Nothing was found. Now he's suing police, claiming officers, including a former member of the Gun Trace Task Force, frightened him, his wife, and father-in-law when the officers conducted what his suit calls an illegal search of his home. The owner of the house tells 11 News after the second raid, he had to replace the front door. McCullough and his attorney say they want Baltimore police held accountable.
There is a colossal breach of trust.
And McCullough tells us following both raids, no one was arrested or charged.
This all begs the question, when will Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby see the prosecution of Bernardez Ruiz as warranted?
They were the stopping officers in these so-called jump-out cars, unmarked and so forth, that stopped both the West vehicle and the Salon vehicle without probable cause. And these officers are the ones that also were joined by others, but they are the ones who initiated the stops, pulled both men out of the vehicles, and commenced the vicious activity that was thrust upon them.
And the officer Ruiz that started this attack is still working and working with promotions. He is now sergeant. But the fact that this repeat violent offender had a history leading up to my brother. There was Darrell Harris, there was James Green, Joseph Green, Abdul Salam, and my sister Dina and her family. No one family deserves to be brutally murdered or brutalized by this repeat violent offender Ruiz. It is time we take action. The time is now.
Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardez Ruiz is a repeat violent offender. Based on these accounts, in accordance with the law, we, the West Coalition, call for him to be fired, prosecuted, and incarcerated.
We're more than hashtags and body bags. We're more than being 6 feet in the dirt and pictures and buttons on t-shirts. Our lives matter.
For the safety of our city, the prevention of further harm, and the justice for these families, we see no other option.
And again, I'll say, the time is now.